Sensitivity is probably one of the most popular reasons why people come to me next to aim coaching. Finding sensitivities in any game is f***ing difficult because a lot of your kills can be derived from having the proper crosshair placement, proper positioning, so on and so forth. The most popular techniques, such as doing a 360, tracking or flicking tests that do not control for muscle memory, nor the amount of effort exerted or micro corrections that are present in your aim, or even possibly the person being really good at a sensitivity that is an extreme outlier, such as me and the countless other goddamn people there are in this world. Holy f***ing shit, there's too many f***ing people. We gotta start executing a few. Well, everyone, I've been aim coaching people for a living for about more than a year. I mechanically trained people who won international Siege tournaments, Valorant 20 winners, ex-professional Halo players, Overwatch contender DPS players, ECA main plus, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. You get the idea, right? So the question is, what the fuck is my technique of finding a person's sensitivity? There are a lot of variables that need to be controlled and a lot of assumptions that must be shut down. Speaking of which, let's go over some assumptions. Where am I? Higher sensitivity equals better aim speed. Lower sensitivity means better accuracy. Half right? No. Well, it's easier to do faster actions with a higher sense and feel more in control with a lower sensitivity, but there are multiple people with high sensitivities that aim quite steadily and multiple people with low sensitivities that aim quite fucking fast. Alright, so let's say that you were to get a target to your right, with the assumption that you do not build muscle memory, which is impossible because frankly if you cannot, then to be quite honest, you missed out on the Homo sapien update. If you flick a target 20 times and underflick it 16 out of those 20 times, that's an issue with accuracy. But does that necessarily mean you must lower your sensitivity to better your accuracy? Let's ask our contestant what is the correct answer. Is it A? Yes. B? Yes. C?
荣耀归于习近
No, you High sense requires more skill, and the players who use it are fucking cracked.
Run into the restroom, yeah. Yeah, alright. You was wrong.
Just because there's a low percentage of people who uses a high sense does not mean that this exclusive club correlates with having an exclusive level of aim. Gingers, there's only 2% of them in the fucking population, but you don't see them fucking walking on water or levitating over the port or some other Wall Street shit. Anyone who uses a high sense or has a high sense elitism is aggressively straight and should be executed on my doorstep. If I had X sensitivity, I would hit that shot. No, you would have died because you're a fucking stupid, dumb idiot. If you challenge a fight that has a low success rate, good luck winning that gamble. Check my video on consistency. Certain plays are simply only possible with having a high or low sense.
I think it's pretty fair to say that that 1 in a million play never would have happened if Hiko played on a low sensitivity.
Twist with the AK, didn't even need the Molotov. Olaf Meister about to be shot in the back. What?
This is gonna sound very forehead, but just move your hand faster. The people that I just showed you have half of Hiko's sensitivity. And the thing is that these are all great players. And that's the one thing you should really, pull away from this. You can't artificially give yourself speed by increasing your sensitivity. That's not to say you can't train on it. You can train any sensitivity. But speed and precision in your aim is something that you train. It's not really something you can just get. And even if you were to train yourself to be good at a high sensitivity, you're just going to be subjected to more inconsistencies depending on how well you're able to adapt to it at an everyday level. To say that he got that shot because his sense was high is basically disenfranchising the fact that this guy put thousands of hours to do shit that is just not possible for the average person. Alright, now it's time for the sensitivity finding portion. First step, load up into either Kovacs or Aim Labs, or honestly anything that actually has highly randomized targets. The idea is to reduce the amount of muscle memory you will be actually attaining throughout the aim thing by making sure almost all of your correctional aim is going to be purely a neurological estimation rather than muscle memory. Don't use the Valorant range because these bots kind of spawn in the same 5 spots. Use something like 6 shot, or in this case, I'm using 5 sphere hipfire endurance. And you want to make sure the targets are somewhat on the smaller to medium size, because if you were to get a large size target, you're just going to change your sense depending on speed, not by the balance of your accuracy and your speed. Make sure to pick tasks that won't involve large flick. Large flicks in game, even for Apex and Overwatch, are used most commonly for pre-aiming. The times that you do aim, then shoot immediately, are small micro adjustments. Since you're already aiming at the person's general area to begin with, we are finding your sensitivity based off of your correctional aim. Your conscious and your subconscious do give an impact on your aiming habit. It helps to have a third party give input in order to reduce your high self-conscious. You ugly fuck. If you can't get someone else to give input or would rather you do it yourself, make sure you don't change your aim habits depending on what you see. You want to aim as quote-unquote naturally as possible. For those who are absolutely new at FPSs, I would suggest find the average sensitivity for your game, and then after converting it to your DPI, change your sensitivity to it. This is so you can start out at what is the suggested common sensitivity range. If you have already played quite a bit of FPSs, don't bother changing your sense just yet. And for those who feel the average sensitivity is way too low, give yourself time to get used to it and then come back to this video. Or if your mousepad is too small for it, then your mousepad size is probably not up to par for what is needed in somewhat competitive play. Do not let stats dictate your choice in sensitivity, mostly because these are fucking dots, not people. They will wait the entire 60 seconds for you to hit that shot, but people definitely won't. You want to try to find your sensitivity based off of your habits. All right, so now in your chosen task, start to begin. Keep everything what I said before in mind. It's important to at least control the environment so it is quote unquote as emulated as possible against enemies. While you're doing your task, keep in mind for a few things that you feel like you're doing. There is a big difference between this and this. The first aim example may have a higher score, but the second aim example shows a person aiming with obvious intent and purpose. While the first habit is only concerned with hitting the dots in general, the second habit shows that the person has the control to know when to stop and shoot. So, how do you find your sense so your habit matches with the second example? Well, let's start with this. When you're doing your task, what does it mean when you see this? I consider this flick angle as a comfortable flick. Diagonal or long flicks are what I consider as uncomfortable flicks. Comfortable flicks are flicks you do very often in game, and therefore you have the most experience in. These flicks will follow the most common thought, meaning that if you underflick, it's a suggestion of a sense too low, and if you overflick, it's a suggestion of a sense too high. And because these flicks are comfortable, you will be putting the least amount of effort into correcting your aim. The reason why I said suggestion is because you need to think of your aiming habit as a whole average, not just 1 or 2 rare misses. Uncomfortable flicks, as what you may assume, are flicks you do not do that often in game. Diagonal flicks or long angle flicks aren't really something you do that often. Because of your uncomfort, you will do your best to control your sense, which is why some new senses will be amazing for a day and then goes shit the next. It is because you became comfortable and therefore you will subconsciously start to not control your sense as aggressively as the day before. But for uncomfortable flicks, the common thought I talked about before goes out the window. You are inherently rational. You will try to adjust yourself to hit a certain goal. Because of this, think of flicks like this. If you overflick, it is not because your sense is too high, rather too low. If you underflick, your sense is not too low, rather too high. Because you are doing an uncomfortable flick, you are doing your best to control your aim. You overflick because you're trying to push yourself to aim at the target. You underflick because you're trying to restrict your aim so you can aim at the target. That's why I tell people that sometimes if you want to aim faster, you'll have to lower your sense. Because essentially, lowering your sense can remove the restrictions you're putting onto yourself, and raising your sensitivity can remove the need to exert extra effort to hit that target. When you're in an actual aim battle, you won't have the luxury to control your sense at the heat of the moment, which is why finding your suggested natural sense could remove inconsistencies because now you remove a variable you're trying to control while you're aiming. If you're having trouble dictating what's an uncomfortable flick or what's a comfortable flick, just think of it like this. If you feel like you have to think before you flick, then it's probably an uncomfortable flick. If you don't, it's probably comfortable. And yeah, I know that you hate the word that I'm saying feeling, but really it's something that you feel within yourself. You feel like you have to push yourself? Do you feel like you have to hold yourself back? Someone with a really sharp eye can catch on to these things. The perfect sensitivity should be a sensitivity that feels ever so slightly too high, because that means you're exerting no effort when you're trying to aim at someone. These underflicks or overflicks are really hard to spot because, again, people are trying to hit these targets. So try to see if they move their hand a second time. So while you're doing the highly randomized and somewhat medium to small target thing, touch up your sense until your first correction is almost on average right on the fucking dot. And sometimes you're just going to flick right on the target and just pause on that, or you flick right on it and then you flick right out because you didn't expect yourself to aim on the target immediately. And this can affect your stats, which is why I say don't pay attention to stats at all. You just want to see how good your target acquisition is. Now you have to get used to the fact that you don't need that second correction. Your first correctional aim is pretty spot on. At this point, you have to just trust yourself more that you're going to be aiming right on the target. Then from there on, that habit will just go away. There's a lot of things to keep in mind, which is why a lot of people come to me for the sensitivity thing. I was fortunate enough to train and find the sensitivities of more than 1,000 people, so it gave me ample time and practice to perfect my craft, especially those of students who have actually gone on and actually had somewhat successful sprouting careers in esports.
No way!
With the clutch.
Oh no! Oh my god! No way! What is happening?
So after doing this for a living, I got a pretty good handle on it. Although I don't think I'm right all the time. So for you guys who are trying to find your own sensitivities, it may be kind of difficult, but if you keep the habits and the assumptions in mind, you can find your suggested natural sensitivity. It is impossible to find what is by fact your natural sensitivity, but you can at least find an assumption of it. You can play at any sensitivity with just enough training. However, with the suggested natural sensitivity, your training time can be reduced and the amount of time to get good at aiming can be reduced, mostly because you don't have to neurologically review yourself, so you can change your habits to fit that sensitivity. You know, your settings should change to you, not you to your settings. So, you know, if you take a break for like 5 months and then you come right back, if you play at a too high of a sensitivity for you naturally, you're probably not going to be as good by far compared to 5 months ago. While with a suggested natural sensitivity, you can ease into it a lot more easier. Because again, you don't have to change yourself to your settings. The settings have essentially already been changed to you. If you're still having difficulty, feel free to hit me up. Say hi to my cat. You're a fucking asshole. You can see more pictures of Pippin on my Twitter. Pippin H. H is middle name. H is for hose.